Good afternoon. My name is Frank Gaffney. I am the president and CEO of the new organization, Save the Persecuted Christians, and I'm delighted to be hosting this important effort to bring to bear the collective energies and concerns of people representing faith communities of every stripe who have come together to address a problem that has been put into particularly sharp relief lately as a result of the massacres of Christians in Sri Lanka, in the sense that that attack and the story that is behind it, namely that we have learned the government of Sri Lanka actually knew that an attack was imminent. They knew the targets of the attack, the churches in Colombo. They knew the day of the attack, and they did nothing to prevent it. They didn't even warn the people who were the intended targets of the attacks. And what this speaks to us working specifically on the crisis of truly unprecedented proportions with respect to Christians around the world is that they are being singled out for persecution, and the persecutors believe they can engage in it with impunity. And tragically, to this point, that's basically right. And of course, it's not just Christians that are now being persecuted in many countries around the world. It is a problem that fundamentally is described as intolerance and an indifference to religious liberty in more countries than one can imagine. This reality is being documented by a number of both governmental and private sector institutions. And thanks to their work, we have a sense of the crimes against humanity that are taking place, truly unspeakable in character and mind-boggling in magnitude. That reality has prompted our organization, Save the Persecuted Christians, to believe that it is time for us to do something beyond, important as it is, trying to help alleviate the suffering of the victims of such religious persecution. That it is time for us to begin holding those who engage in such persecution accountable for doing so. And more to the point, to create costs to them for engaging in this kind of barbaric behavior. It is clearly a challenge to do that. It will take many people, both in government and in the American public more generally, to come together to try to begin holding the persecutors accountable and creating costs to them for their crimes against humanity. Something we believe that can be done immediately, though, is to hold people accountable for what is, as a practical matter, the enabling of persecution of Christians and others. And in that category, of course, are, among others, prominent law firms and lobbying entities in this town. K Street is just a couple of blocks away, and it is, of course, known internationally to be the denizen of the lobbyists who help shape American policy. And one of those particularly prominent organizations is Squires, Patton, Boggs, a law firm that both does legal representation and lobbying, both in this country and in many other places around the world. And as it happens, until very recently, Squire Patton Boggs represented one of the most odious of the persecuting nations, the government of Sudan. They just dropped them as a client at the end of last year, to their credit. Unfortunately, they are still representing the government of the People's Republic of China. They are still representing the government of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They are still representing the nation of Qatar. And it's just come to our attention in the past 24 hours that they are also representing the Palestinian Authority, an entity that is also, as with Sudan, as with Saudi Arabia, as with China, as with Qatar, engaged in heavy persecution of Christians and to varying degrees others. So our purpose here today, and I'm alas obliged to be someplace else shortly, so I'm basically just going to kick this off with a word of welcome to all of you, both those of you here, for whom we're very grateful, as well as those of you who are joining us through the miracle of live streaming, to talk about what we think Squire Patton Boggs must do. Must do. To end its involvement, whatever its intention is, its involvement in the enabling of persecution of Christians and others by doing what they've done just recently with respect to Sudan, with respect to the other clients that are still in the business of persecution and that they are still in the business of enabling. Namely, to end their relationship with Communist China, with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, and with the Palestinian Authority. I pray that this will be their response to a letter that we have sent to them, signed by dozens of organizations, 46 to be precise. Organizations representing people of faith, just about every faith that I can think of, who are concerned about what Squire Patton Boggs is doing and who are joining forces in this common purpose of getting them to cease and desist in the enabling of the persecution